All right, fire 'em up!
In the Ironheart series, tech and magic collide, but does the tech genius Riri Williams have enough magic to draw us all into watching this series? You know, I'll be quite honest with you. I've tried to write the review for this show probably 5 times now, and I've gone over it, agonized it, erased things, started over. But to be truthful, nothing that I write actually sounds like what I'm trying to say. So what you're going to get right now is me reviewing the show, and it's going to be completely off the cuff. So if I stammer over a few things, just forgive me, charge it to the fact that I'm just winging it at the moment. So the Ironheart series is now over. 6 episodes of a really good series, limited series, I should say, that I thought was going to be something completely different, but they brought so much of what's in the comics into this show, and they did it in such an expedient manner. I think maybe this show I think it's too short. Honestly, 6 episodes. I understand the story they were trying to tell, but I think it would have been better if it was more like 10, and a few things were a bit more fleshed out, and I think this would have been a hell of a lot better. But overall, I think Ironheart is a really, really good series, and most of the criticisms around the show, I think, are just from people who don't like the idea of seeing a female or a black person or anything within the MCU of superheroes, anything outside of the original group. I don't think people want to see, and I think that's really a sad thing, because Riri Williams and Ironheart, the show itself, shines a spotlight on the fact that something that I've been saying for a long time, especially within DC, but Marvel should take this cue too. Smaller characters have a place, especially when the story is told really well. They have a place inside of these comic book shows and movies, and I think so far Riri Williams is the fact that she showed up in this Ironheart series, I think she's the best example of it so far. If you haven't seen the show or seen any reviews, where have you been? You've been living under a rock, I guess. But the story is pretty straightforward. Riri Williams from Chicago is a child genius. She winds up in college, but she winds up getting kicked out of college because she's selling homework in order to raise money in order to improve on the Iron Man suit that she has actually already built at college. She winds up getting kicked out of MIT and having to go back home and move back in with her mom, and she starts to rebuild an all new suit, but she still needs the money to do it, and she winds up in the same gang as Parker Robbins, aka the Hood, and in that one she starts committing crimes and she's making money, and she's leading everybody on, but a whole lot of other things start to happen, and she spirals all the way down to the point, at one point she meets Mephisto and makes a deal with him to bring back her dead friend. That's a completely different tangent in the story, and it's a really good tangent, but I want to keep the spoilers just in case somebody hasn't seen it, but I want to keep the spoilers down. So if you have not watched the series, trust me, it is well worth to watch. It's only 6 episodes, it's not really that long, but yeah, you really do need to watch it. The pluses of the show is that it is very comic book accurate. You can't say that for a lot of the other Disney Plus shows. This one specifically has a ton, and I mean a ton, of comic book lore pulled directly from the comic books for Ironheart directly into the show, and a lot of other things outside of Ironheart that circle around her and pulled into the show as well. I love the fact that we actually get to see magic in this show, and Mephisto in the end, and they mentioned Camertage, and you have Zelma, who is her friend, or I should say a friend, but not a very close friend, but her mom's friend's daughter. We know from the comics that she is very close to Doctor Strange and has studied at Camertage and is part of the class of younger students that Doctor Strange teaches. The fact that she's in this show and they mention it, and that means this is going to lead into something with Doctor Strange, especially with that after credit scene. Make sure you go watch that. That's a good thing. So much of what happens in this show is going to lead to other things. I believe this is going to lead to Doctor Strange. It's going to lead into Armor Wars. Remember, we were supposed to have this series already done, but they pushed it back. They even took it off the production schedule, but they have said that Armor Wars will get made. They just haven't greenlit it for when it's going to come out in what phase, but they are going to make it. I think this kind of leads into it, especially because of that after credit scene, and especially especially with the fact that another good thing about it, the villains live in this one. Yes, the hood lives. We have another one with Ezekiel Stain, directly from the comic, also in this. He shows up in this, and he's a villain. Guess what? They're alive, and that's something I've been saying for a long time. Don't kill the villains. Let the villains come back. He specifically said, Ezekiel Stain said, hey, whatever happens right now, specifically what's in the show, it is what it is. But just let you know, we're not done yet. That's a good thing. You have a villain with a gripe still out there that's going to come back for revenge against the hero. That's something that almost every other MCU show and movie has done poorly, in my opinion. They've killed off the villains, and the villains don't come back to cause havoc. You want your villains to come back, especially when you have smaller characters like this. A character like Ezekiel Stain popping back up and having to consistently fight Ironheart, that's a good thing. It also reminds me that in Iron Man 2, they had Whiplash, even though he's not the same one from the comics, but they had him. I don't think they should have killed him. I think they should have left him out there and had him come back in some capacity. But that's a completely separate topic. But again, there are so many good things in this show, especially those that I just mentioned. I love the fact that this show is filled with a lot of heart and a lot of addressing anxiety and trauma. That's something that needs to be addressed. A lot of these characters in the MCU go through things that they never have any type of release for, and it blows up in their face, and it causes them to do crazy things down the line. Just look at Tony. Tony never dealt with his PTSD, and then he winds up going off on a tangent to the point where him and Steve break off from each other because he never really dealt with it, because he's been so traumatized from the Battle of New York that he winds up trying to create suits of armor around the world and winds up creating Ultron. People forget that is the reason why he created Ultron. But again, a lot of what has happened in this show, I do actually give it a thumbs up because they pull it directly from other films, and specifically they pulled it directly from the comic books. But the show itself isn't all perfect. They did a lot of things that I just did not like. I did not like the fact that they had Riri get kicked out of MIT. She didn't get kicked out of MIT in the comic books, so why have her get kicked out of this one? Yes, she needs to raise money, so why not just say, hey, she's doing the absolute best she could at college. She's about to graduate, but she needs money because she has to build the suit, but she doesn't have the same type of resources that Tony Stark has. But don't have her get kicked out of college. I think that kind of impugns on her character, not just her moral character, but how smart she is. She's smarter than that. She should be smart enough to do something in order to raise money outside of having to sell homework and wind up getting kicked out of college. I thought that was a very bad idea. I did not like the fact that she winds up making a deal with Mephisto at the end of the series. Yes, I'm going to spoil just this little bit, but I didn't like that at all. So now her friend is back, right? She made the deal. Well, she was expecting it to not go through because for whatever reason, I don't know. This is what Mephisto does. She saw exactly what the Hood went through having to deal with Mephisto. So why would she make the deal? She's smarter than that. So when her friend is now back alive, what does she think is going to happen once her friend comes back? She's been dead all this time. How is her brother's going to freak out now that her friend's back? Now that Natalie's back. Now that Natalie's back, her brother's going to freak out. The people in the neighborhood who have put up a mural of her and Riri's stepfather on the wall of this man's garage after they were gunned down in a drive-by. So what happens when she pops around the neighborhood? You think nobody's going to look at that sideways and say, well, you're dead. We got a mural of you. What now? What? There's so many questions and threads to pull just from Natalie coming back. And it's like, okay, I can see you all figuring something out. I get it, but I don't even think that's a thread that they should have even tried to unravel. They should not have brought her back at all. Have her saved in the AI, and then just like in the comic, Natalie is the AI in the suit. So just leave it at that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think Natalie as the AI, as a character, honestly, one of the absolute bright sides of the show. I thought her character was great. I thought the fact that she was the AI and how she reminded Riri of so many things that it triggered her trauma, but she was also the only way to calm the trauma down, to pull her out of the anxiety attacks. That was a perfect dynamic to leave her in. You did not have to bring her in at the end. Honestly, if you were going to bring somebody back, it should have been the stepfather. That would have been completely off the wall, because then you bring the mom into it and everything else. But I just didn't like the fact that they did that. I thought Riri Williams would have been smart enough to be like, no, I saw what you did with him and the hood and all the things you promised him. I don't want no part of it. And just like threw the hood back at him and said, stay out of my city, this, that, and the other. Maybe we get some other story or some other tangent down the line where they'll fix that. But I just thought those things didn't need to be in the show. Overall, my critique of the show is very different from everybody else's critique, because I think everybody else's critique is leaning toward the fact that they just don't like to see black women or black people in general as superheroes in the MCU. They've gone so far as to say that they don't like Riri's character because she's a criminal and she's replacing a true superhero. Well, that's really not the case. Number one, she's not replacing Tony Stark. She's not taking up the mantle of Iron Man. In order to take up the mantle, you have to have the exact same name. She's a completely separate character on her own, doing her own thing. Now, would she be part of an Avengers team? Yes, but it would be the Young Avengers team, not the regular Avengers team, which would be alongside Sam Wilson as Captain America. Remember, everybody hated that, but there's no reason to hate that because that's comic book accurate. And I thought we wanted comic book accuracy. But going back to Tony Stark, Riri Williams is exactly like Tony Stark. Her character in this show mimics everything that has happened with Tony throughout the MCU all the way up until his death. You don't believe me? Think about it like this. What did Tony do that got him to be Iron Man? He was a weapons manufacturer, and he wasn't selling to just the United States. He was selling to anybody who had the cash to buy it. He wound up in the cave having to build that suit, not by himself and not from scraps. Always remember that. He wound up in that cave alongside another doctor, having to save him with the battery in the chest and having to build this thing in order to break out. But those weapons that were in the cave, which is what he built the first Mark I Iron Man suit from in the MCU, those weapons were ones that he had sold and then were stolen by terrorists. He was a weapons manufacturer. He was selling to criminals. He was selling to people who are enemies of the United States. He is not some grand superhero where you can just hang your hat on and say, well, he's a great guy. No, he's not bad either. He's a complex character, just like Riri Williams. They don't always do the great and most popular and the good thing. Most times they'll do something where they want something to be good, to be better, for people to be safe, but they go about it in such a way that it blows up in their face and it makes a problem worse. Again, I remind you, Tony was trying to put a suit of armor around the world to protect everybody. So if we as the Avengers can't get there fast enough, at least my Iron Man suits can hold it down until we show up in order to take over the fight. But what happened? He went so far, he winds up creating Ultron. And Ultron wants to destroy the world because he sees us as the problem with the world. Well, Tony was trying to do something good, but he winds up creating a problem. It's exactly what Riri Williams did in this show. She wants to create a suit to be iconic. That's just a tagline. What she wants to do is to prove that she's as smart as the person that she looks up to. Not just her stepfather, but Tony Stark. So she's trying to carry on his work in her own fashion. She's doing the best she can with what she has, which isn't much. She even says at one point that, hey, what would Tony be if he didn't have his billions of dollars? Let's be for real. Tony didn't go to school to earn that money, to start a business and earn that money. He inherited from his father, a business that his father built, not Tony. Tony just took it over and ran it unto its course of what we see in the MCU. Without the money, without the inheritance, would Tony have done any better? The answer is most likely no. They probably would have wound up in the exact same place. But again, that doesn't make Tony a bad person. It makes him a person who has made bad choices, and he has spent his entire time in the MCU up until his death trying to make it better, which is exactly where we're at with Riri Williams. She's trying to do something good, but she's making mistakes. She's young. She's going to make the mistakes. And in time, those mistakes will get fixed because she's the hero. It's exactly what we would expect of a complex character. All of characters in comic books are complex. Yes, you have characters that are flat and don't know nothing, and they're just there for comic relief or to punch and it's one-liners, and then they are off the page onto the next thing. But most characters, the characters that stick around, the ones that we truly love, they're all complex. They're all not morally gray, but they all kind of bend a little in order to get the job done. Yes, even Captain America. But hey, that's totally separate. But still, there's nothing wrong with her character in the show because she is very much exactly like Tony. She has anxiety attacks, just like he did in Iron Man 3. Trust me, they are exactly alike. And to say that she's not a superhero simply because it's not Tony is asinine at best. I truly did enjoy Ironheart, all 6 episodes. I still believe that it should have been a little bit longer. I think if you fleshed out a little bit more of story, I think the series becomes a bit more enjoyable. But 6 episodes with this limited series, and then we're going to carry on with something else, especially coming out of bringing Riri Williams' character out of Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, into this. I think this is a very good showing for the character. I can't wait to see more. You have too many people on one side saying that this is complete woke trash, which again, this is not woke. It's just a story with a black female as the center character. And then you have people on the other side who say it's an 8 or a 9 out of 10. I think both sides of that spectrum for grading are just completely wrong. I think you're too far one way or the other. For me personally, I think this is somewhere between a 6 and a 7. Let's just say 6.5. It's a really good show, but it's flawed in a lot of ways. A lot of things that Riri Williams did, I don't think should have been done or should not have been written into her character. I think she's a lot smarter than that. I think the deal with Mephisto at the end kind of, I still, that bothered me more than anything in the series. But again, it's still a really good series. It's a really fun watch. If you have not watched it, I suggest you watch it. I'm very sure you will enjoy it. If you have watched it, I want to know what you honestly thought of it. I don't want to hear what it's just woke. Nope. I need you to give me honest opinion right there in the comments. It's open. I want to hear everything you have to say, and I just wanted to know what everybody else thought, because like I said, I truly did enjoy the series. I thought it was really good. And honestly, if Disney wants to do smaller characters and do limited series like this, maybe a couple more episodes. Let's just not say 10. Let's not say 10. Let's say 8, right? And do smaller characters like that. That's a thumbs up, because honestly, this is the best show we've seen in the MCU. This is the best Disney Plus show probably since. Not since WandaVision. Yeah, maybe since WandaVision. Maybe. Or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, perhaps. But it is a really good series, no matter how you look at it. Like I said, 6.5, 7-ish, let's say 6.5 out of 10. And don't forget to leave your comments and let me know what you thought of the show if you did see it. It's time for us to go. We will end this show the same way we end all other shows. God bless. I love you, and peace. See you next time.